Very pleasant good morning to everyone. Speaking as a Minister of Health, I don't know about the nutritional value of the monkey yet. I think the word is still out on that. But I would like to make 3 observations from what we just saw. First of all, I was happy that the big shot was a female. Because normally when you hear about big shots, usually not females. Well, it shows the times have changed and are changing. We're happy about that. The second observation is what diplomats have to endure. Even if you don't like it, you have to say, yes, bring some more. I don't know if that is part of the training for the diplomats. And the third thing I would like to say is that having had such a skit like this where everyone was enjoying and laughing, you now have to endure me. So I crave your indulgence. Right? Thank you. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Honorable Prime Minister, who cannot be here this morning. He extends his best wishes for a productive and enlightening retreat, and wish you all the best in your deliberations over the next 2 days. Permit me to acknowledge the presence of His Excellencies Sir Edmund Lawrence, our Governor General, the Honorable Curtis Martin, Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honorable Attorney General, the Honorable Jason Hamilton, the Honorable Patrice Nisbet, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Homeland Security, Justice and Legal Affairs and Labour, the Honorable Nigel Carty, our Minister of Education, our Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Joseph Meade, Mr. Elvis Newton, the Permanent Secretary in Foreign Affairs and the Head of the Public Service, heads of missions and non-resident ambassadors of St. Kitts-Nevis, other members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, Dr. Norman Gervin, Professor Emeritus of the University of the West Indies and our specially invited guest, permanent secretaries and other senior government officials, Commissioner of Police and Commander of the St. Kitts-Nevis Police Defense Force, members of staff of the Foreign Affairs, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. We're gathered here this morning as part of a retreat, the opening ceremony indeed of a retreat, the St. Kitts-Nevis Heads of Missions, under the theme, St. Kitts-Nevis' approach to global reconfiguration and Caribbean international relations. The world is changing and changing fast. A notable American political scientist, Francis Fukuyama, dubbed the end of the Cold War as the end of history. We now know that that characterization was both premature and fallacious. In fact, history continues to be made across the political, economic, social, and environmental spectrum. Old dogmas are being appended. Accepted orthodoxies, economic, social, and political, have been challenged. No longer are we able to predict the patterns of global phenomena with unquestionable certainty. In no area is this reality more clear than the vexing issue of climate change. For states like St. Kitts-Nevis, this phenomenon goes to the very core of the theme we're exploring here today. In recent times, global debates have focused on the alarming changes in the global climate. They have been filled with predictions that a warmer climate will trigger more violent storms and rising sea levels, impacting every facet of human life and livelihood. While we have participated in these debates and continue to champion a rejection of business as usual and a reorientation toward green growth, we are cognizant that indeed change is pervasive, it is penetrating, while we as change agents are sometimes slow. Slow to act, slow to change, slow to adjust. Therein lies the dilemma that we face today. How do small developing states like ours adapt and adapt to the multifaceted and ongoing evolution of global imperatives, while at the same time ensuring the best outcomes for our long-term national priorities. What comforts are we willing to sacrifice? What dogmas are we willing to reject? What orthodoxies are we willing to overturn? The changes we observe across the world today transcend the physical environmental landscape into the economic and the geopolitical. Indeed, over time, we have known demographies to fluctuate, political ideologies to fail, governments to crumble, economic and financial systems to be derailed, groups of states to disintegrate, and others to merge into single spaces. We can go back to the end of the Second World War to highlight the consistency of the change we speak of. We can even go back to the end of the Cold War. But the stark reality is, if we are to be serious and appreciate and exploit the pace of change before us, we should look no farther back than perhaps the last decade and a half. The contemporary reference points for political analysts now consist of the following: the 9/11 attacks, the rise of China, the BRICS, rise in Africa, the Arab Spring, the emerging economies, the blue and green economy, the Great Recession, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, crowdfunding, corporate social responsibility, Eurozone crisis, South-South cooperation, renewable energy, shale gas, and the like. The surrounding discourses and events of these reference points all tell us something profound about our changing times. These and similar global events and trends have at different times affected and are effected at varying magnitudes global political and economic reconfigurations. St. Kitts-Nevis and states with similar characteristics are not immune to these new features of the global society. Our interdependent world guarantees this. As a small island developing state, aware of our limitations, but confident of our potential, we are making every effort to ensure that our approach to these changes extracts maximum benefit for our development. This is why we are diversifying our global partnerships. This is why we are seeking new markets for our tourism and manufacturing products. This is why we are incorporating renewable energy into our energy mix and transitioning to a green economy. This is why we are ensuring that no child in this beloved federation is left behind without an education anchored on innovation and technology. This is why we are providing skills training and empowering our young people. This is why we are reforming our social safety nets program to ensure that they reach the most vulnerable among us. This is why more and more women are being placed in leadership positions, as is evident in the growing number of women serving as our ambassadors today. These efforts and more reflect the response of a progressive government to contemporary change. As St. Lucian Nobel Prize winner Derek Walcott once remarked, "The future happens no matter how much we scream." And he's right. The approach, therefore, of St. Kitts-Nevis is not to scream. It is to be sober-minded. It is to be ready. It is the firm belief of this administration that the complexities and uncertainties of our world necessitate not just the ability to predict, but the ability to be prepared for whatever change is on the horizon. The best way to do that is to invest in our people. This approach is best captured by the title of a book by Dr. Richard Haas, the president of the Council on Foreign Relations in the United States of America. foreign policy begins at home. Human capital is therefore at the core of our approach to contemporary international relations. At the macro level, we believe that our efforts regionally through our integration systems provide a bulwark for our people against the disadvantages of globalization, of hyperchange. Regional integration systems for some time now have come to represent the ultimate change in the theory of international relations. That is, the move from the strict application of the Westphalian model into the more contemporarily appropriate supranationalism epitomized in regionalism. Consider the evolution of the European Economic Community, which after progressive reviews undertaken by the need to remain relevant in international affairs, developed into the European Community. This, in turn, was remodeled most recently through the Lisbon Treaty to what we now know today as the European Union. Without venturing too far afield, we can recall the recent formation of the Community of Latin American Caribbean States, the revision of the Treaty of Chaguaramas to facilitate the Caribbean single market and economy, and the transformation within the sub-regional organization of the Eastern Caribbean States with the creation of the Economic Union not too long ago. These revolutions appear to be consistent with the view that economic integration and functional cooperation in the global liberalized economy can provide opportunities for greater competitive advantage, particularly for states such as ours. This is why we encourage our people to take full advantage of these regimes so as to secure the benefits that are to be derived. Furthermore, as our national and regional projects bear fruit for our people, we must pledge to be more creative and innovative in engaging external partners. If there is one teachable moment to take from the lingering economic and financial crises plaguing the world, it is that our debaters, interviewers, and speakers on the whole cannot continue to be one-dimensional. These crises were not merely a result of government actions. Therefore, the resolutions require that all actors participate in the rebuilding of our economic and financial foundations. Speaking at the Conference on Global Governance and Reform of the International Financial System at the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. in April 2013, Foreign Minister Winston Ducaran of Trinidad and Tobago asserted that the face of global economics is changing, and to be relevant in the near future, each country must change their own outlook. The theme you have selected for this retreat is therefore opportune, as it urges us as strategists and practitioners of foreign affairs to pause and review our strategies. The small and vulnerable economies of the Caribbean are much more susceptible to international economic shocks than many others currently on their knees as a result of the global economic downturn. Although the region has shown some resilience in the past to such occurrences, the challenge remains as to how to maintain and bolster this resilience in the face of deficiencies in public financing. A critical component of this approach means enlisting our private sector partners as engines for sustained economic growth. While not a novel idea, private-public partnerships, or smart partnerships, are increasingly vital for national development. The Caribbean, including St. Kitts and Nevis, should be proactive in engaging our own private sector partners to commit to work with their governments to boost public financing for greater financial stability and sustainability. Similarly, our ambassadors in their respective jurisdictions must ensure that their missions are hubs for trade and investment promotion. We have put frameworks and agreements in place, such as the CARIFORUM EU Economic Partnership Agreement, that augur well for trade with that critical market. A part of this approach mandates that we shake off timidity in highlighting and selling the benefits of trading and investing in St. Kitts and Nevis. We would recall that the Caribbean was once central to global trade in key commodities. We can be that again. Our geostrategic position between North America and South America, a rising region, should be a key selling point. There are inherent benefits to investing in St. Kitts and Nevis across the various sectors. A stable economy, a solid currency, an educated people, and adherence to the rule of law all make us a wise and safe investment destination. The plethora of investments we are currently seeing in our economy testifies to the confidence in our country. Let us move forward together, motivated by the prospects that abound if we move beyond the tradition of government-to-government transactions and redefine diplomacy based on our terms. I therefore use this opportunity afforded by this forum to once again call on the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and members of the private sector to work with us. We welcome opportunities to engage you and consider the national consultation on the economy a critical mechanism to dialogue with you on how together we can continue to recover from this lingering, debilitating crisis. Only last week, we received very encouraging news from the International Monetary Fund that following its 5th and 6th reviews of Federation's economy is rebounding. So how have we in St. Kitts and Nevis weathered our domestic challenges triggered by the global recession? We undertook a stringent fiscal restructuring program, enlisting the support of all stakeholders. This required sacrifice. It required us leaving our comfort zones. It required us putting aside politically expedient decisions. And now today, our actions are reaping dividends, not only in the area of debt reduction, but also in the area of job creation and employment, especially among our youth. I am confident that with the growth trend in the economy, we shall continue to witness a better standard of living for all our people. This is the goal of this government. This administration is adamant that any gains in the public purse must be reflected in the pockets of the hard-working men and women at all levels who over the past 4 years or more have had to sacrifice and make do for the good of our country. It is this understanding, it is this sacrifice, it is this faith in the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis and in the creed of country above self that have allowed us to move forward towards peace, progress, and prosperity. This is the approach that must guide our response to this changing world. As a confident and strong St. Kitts and Nevis continues to take its rightful place in the region, actively participating in the bodies of which it enjoys membership, supporting the mechanisms for greater integration, we are ever mindful that as a nation, we must be responsible and can only enhance the gains of the whole if we as a government and people carve out a path as to where we want to be in the next 10, 20, or 50 years. Having done so, we must commit all our resources and energies to making significant strides towards that goal. I'm often reminded when I think of the world that ours is a world made up of countries big and small, powerful and not so powerful, rich and poor. St. Kitts and Nevis is one of those small countries, but only by size. Let me remind us all today, our confidence, our ambition, and our numerous achievements cannot be measured in square miles. There is nothing small about our sense of who we are and what we can accomplish together. In conclusion, I wish to commend the Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Patrice Nisbet, and Mr. Elvis Newton, Head of the Public Service and Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the entire staff for their vision in organizing this retreat. You have made an excellent choice of keynote speaker in the person of Professor Emeritus of the University of the West Indies, Dr. Norman Gervin, as a former Secretary General of the Wider Regions Association of Caribbean States. I am confident that his wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise will augur well for healthy and progressive thinking and deliberations on and around the theme. It is my sincere hope that the process will usher in a renewed sense of the task at hand, and that we will leave this retreat motivated to work harder, to seize the opportunities presented by this ever-changing world. Thank you, and God bless.